So this reflecting ability we have is emphasized by the Buddha in his teaching. The structure itself is, if you chant the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, first sermon, the Four Noble Truths, you'll notice it's a statement: there is suffering, suffering should be understood, suffering has been understood. That pattern follows through each Noble Truth. 12 insights, 3 aspects of each truth. First statement is a statement: there is, and then to understand, which means the second one is what to do about it, understand it. In other words, notice it rather than just react to it. Like we tend to just react to suffering and see it as, have various emotional aversions, resistances, or blaming or whatever on the world around us. So to understand is not understand the word itself, but the reality of it. So it's looking, understand suffering. You have to accept it, your own sense of inadequacy, worry, anxiety, wanting something, not wanting something is like this. Understanding, and then the insight, third is the insight that comes through understanding. Suffering has been understood. Now, if it's merely a doctrine, doctrinal teaching, and a theory, then it isn't reflective. It's merely giving you some kind of intellectual equipment to think about or analyze. But notice this is turning inward. You're not looking for suffering as something external anymore, but your own feelings that derive from not understanding suffering, but merely being caught in reacting to it. So the difference between noble truth and doctrinal teachings is doctrine is you're supposed to accept it and operate from a doctrine, from a given doctrine, where the noble truths are stating a reality that we all experience, we can all recognize. It's not subtle or difficult, it's ordinary human suffering, pointing to it, telling you what to do about it, in order to be free from just the habitual, blind, ignorant reactions to suffering that we have if we don't do this. So notice there's no kind of basic doctrine, or we're not operating from a stated doctrinal position. Like dukkha is not ultimate reality, or it's not it's not something that is permanent. It is what it is, and to understand it, that means that we can free ourselves from the causes, recognize, discern the absence, and cultivate accordingly to those kind of insights. So it's a very pragmatic teaching. Then we have the tradition itself, the Pali Buddhist Theravada tradition, and for myself, I've been trained and took the Upasampada in Thailand. And so the 10 years of training with Luang Por Chah And that kind of training was always aimed at reflecting on the way it is, rather than trying to, try to solve all the worldly problems, so that we try to make everything right and good according to various individuals' ideas. So that's why I keep emphasizing the Dhamma as our goal, as the immediate goal, the purpose of this life. I'm not interested in a kind of just holding on to traditions and promoting Buddhism in the Western world, or trying to appease or convert or please anyone. The whole point of Amaravati, to me anyway, this was my intention, was to make a place available for this kind of teaching, for people interested, those inclined, those who have some appreciation or interest or willingness to practice. So people do, they have, what is your vision? What do you see for the future? How do you want to develop? All these questions people ask me, because this is how the world thinks, to have a vision of the future, a development of the Sangha, and on like this. Well, to me, this is not part of my interest. It's not about vision for the future. It's always pointing at the here and now. Awaken attention here and now. So there's no future. The tradition that we have is an expedient means only. It's not to be seen in terms of something that we're attached to, and that we give ourselves to a tradition on a personal level. The point of the tradition is merely a functional one. Simplify our way of living in order to not have all the kind of worldly demands, worldly attitudes pulling us every which way. So that's why the ideal of the samana is, to me, the aim of the life is contentment, gratitude, because this way, this bringing into the society here, something that I think we need to, humility, contentment, gratitude, rather than ambition, a missionary cause, rights, and so forth, that the modern life tends to exalt and believe in completely. So it is, kind of the sense of humility of not trying to be somebody or prove anything, or always thinking of the future to change it, make it better, modernize it, and on like this. These are worldly values that are quite common everywhere at this time. Now the Sakya Ditti then is the first fetter, and this is, we are, conditioned to actually, completely committed to ourselves as an individual and a personality. It's not blaming anyone for that. It's the culture, the times. This is the age of personality. You hear on the radio about celebrity culture, people that have no talent whatsoever but have some ability to make themselves a celebrity, well known for nothing but being well known. And these are, kind of empty values of the time, having power, having influence, dominance, individualism, rights, idealism of fairness and equality and freedom. These are ideals. And these ideals taken from the individual level, it leads towards endless discontentment. If we're all equal and we all should be free equally and have equal rights and equal everything, on an individual level, where do we feel everything is equal? Is it just that's not that equality, that I'm against equality, but we have to awaken to the way it is, that the conditioned realm, its very nature is difference, inequality, change. A condition changes, so it's not equal. The equality lies in their characteristics, the anicca, dukkha, anatta. And so that's where, when we reflect in, say, Vipassana meditation on these three characteristics of existence, this is what they all share in common, all conditioned phenomena: subtle, psychic, mental, emotional, physical, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. The equality lies in these three characteristics. Impermanence, all conditions are impermanent, unsatisfactory, dukkha, and anatta, non-self. So this is discerning the way it is. It's not about how things should be from an ideal, but it's about, the realities of being human, of being a human individual, sensitive form living here and now, in this place, this time and this place. So this sense of exerting rights and and expressing individuality and working on that level seems to me pointless in this context. If that's your aim in life, then say the political realm or something like that would be a more suitable way to promote your agendas. But in terms of liberation from ignorance and suffering, then this is a very effective convention for getting to the roots, the causes of dukkha, of suffering. Sometimes in modern life Buddhism is, people are very idealistic about it, so it should be peaceful and everybody's full of kindness and compassion. So, it does have a good public image, basically, in the Western world. I don't suppose it does in China, but in today, but the Western world generally considers it, at least it's peaceful, it's non-violent, it's compassionate. But these are also ideals, aren't they? The peace and compassion. When we grasp them as ideals, then we become very critical of the reality. If people have an idea that Buddhist monks and nuns should be full of compassion all the time, metta and karuna, and peaceful, calm, wise. And then they meet the reality, they become disillusioned. They say, oh, I thought Buddhist monks are peaceful, and they don't ever get angry. And then they lose because the ideal of the Buddhist monk, the Buddhist nun, is the reality of individual human being who's taken on this form, this tradition, for practice. It doesn't magically transform you into a Buddha Rupa or into an ideal Buddhist monk or nun. So each one of us has to, we reflect on, I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma. This reflection is, we're all working from where we are, the way it is, the conditions that we experience, which are different, not equal. And then we expect everybody to, my mistakes in monastic life is thinking because I do it this way, everybody else should, or because I suffer like this, then everybody else suffers exactly the same way, only realize that that's not true. Thinking that I am the kind of example of humanity, and therefore I judge everybody according to myself. That's Sakkaya Ditthi. Now, an ideal is, not to be despised, but it's to be seen for what it is. It's discerning an ideal from reality. So the Buddha was not talking about ideals of how things should be, but about the reality of being a human being. And this applies, this is teaching, its origin was in India, 2,552 years ago, and it's a universal truth because it applies today equally. It's not, it's not about ancient Indian civilization or modern European civilization, as if there's the human predicament is that different. Basically, it's the same thing, isn't it? Suffering, ignorance, and the suffering that comes out of ignorance. Now we can assume that we're not ignorant, that we're educated, literate people. On the Sakkaya Ditthi level, that might be true, that I'm educated person, can read and write, all that kind of thing. But the ignorance, in this case, the avijja in Pali, is not understanding the Four Noble Truths, 3 aspects and 12 insights. So when we talk about wisdom or panya, it all revolves around this, having these insights into suffering, its causes, its cessation, its absence, and the way of living our lives, the remainder of our lives in the human form, without creating suffering. In other words, through discerning, through panya, through satipanya, through discerning, and learning from the vipaka karma that we experience as we grow old. So we have the insights when, depending on the individual, from various, whether young, middle-aged, old, or whatever. But you're not dead yet. So, you have the remainder of your life, to cultivate bhavana, the way of non-suffering, the Eightfold Path, in other words. And so the Eightfold Path is, the insight that is the catalyst for the rest of the, for this path is the samadhi. So if you notice in the Four Noble Truths, the insight into the cessation, the end of suffering, is then leads to samadhi, right understanding, or perfect understanding. And so that perfect understanding is not a kind of conceptual understanding. You can't find perfect understanding in the Pali dictionary. It can't be conveyed by an enlightened teacher. It's to be known individually. This is you have to. It's the understanding that comes through intuitive realization, not through acquiring somebody else's view, no matter how accurate and profound somebody else's view might be. So even if it's in the Pali Canon, it's somebody else's view, that you acquire that kind of information from a book, or from maybe an enlightened teacher. But that's not it. It's not about the Dalai Lama says this, or Ajahn Chah says that, or whatever. It's about you having penetrated through investigation of suffering, its causes, cessation, and the way of non-suffering. So, for in my own case, the way of non-suffering is non-attachment, non-self. Emptiness, unconditioned, unborn, unformed, uncreated. It's just this. It's a recognizing, and samaditi, then samasangapo, intention. After there's right understanding, perfect understanding, then your intention, there's no choice anymore, and you no longer want to, you don't see the futility of just running back into the conditioned realm blindly. We have to learn how to live with the conditioned realm, because it's our vipaka karma, the physical body as it ages, then when conditions arise, we feel certain emotions. We still, after we have insight into the path, and people still insult us or challenge us, or we have to deal with all kinds of conditions that affect us physically, emotionally. We don't get out of it, like we suddenly don't feel anything. And the conditioned realm, the society we live in, doesn't affect us anymore. We're just totally indifferent to it. We don't, and that would be a zombie. If that's what enlightenment was just making us totally indifferent to the sensitive realm that we're experiencing. So we're not trying to become zombies, but to awaken fully to the sensitivity that is the vipaka karma of being born in this realm as a human individual. And then in the monastic Sangha, recognize that we've committed ourselves to a conventional form that is, it's a moral form. It's all about restraint, not harming, intentionally harming, insulting other beings. Respect for nature, respect for environment, respect for society, respect for individuals. So, where the Dhamma, or the truth of the way it is, doesn't make us into callous, indifferent psychopaths or zombies. So then the metta, the Brahmaviharas, they come into, this is a reflection. What comes out of the purity of consciousness is not personal anymore. It's not me, Ajahn Sumedho, full of compassion and incredibly kind and nice about everything. It's not, me trying to act a role of being a kind, compassionate Buddhist monk in the society, because that sense of a self has been recognized as not to be attached to it, but to trust in the awareness, and then our relationships to each other, to the society, to the environment, are best described through these four Brahma Viharas: metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. So it's not about trying to be more compassionate as a person, but compassion spontaneously arises from consciousness when we see the conditions for that particular response to a particular situation. Now the samana life then is, there's a Buddhist monastic life, is alms mendicancy, and so contemplate that. Why did the Buddha establish a convention on alms mendicancy, like the four requisites? In the terms of our time, in the values of modern life, it seems almost a kind of madness. Depending, not having money, not having personal possessions, not owning property, not having to relinquish food after we've eaten our meal, not storing it up for the next day. Not this ideal of the alms mendicant is one who, is totally dependent, helplessly dependent on the goodness and kindness of others. Now here at Amaravati, we can take it for granted. We're the alms mendicants, the lay people. We relinquish the food, but we know the lay people will keep it and serve it the next day. So there is a kind, recognize this is one of the dangers of our life here, is that we can become, like priests or Brahmins or princesses or princes or kind of aristocratic twits that just, expect people to provide for us because we have larders and fridges and things like this. We have a lot of support financially. There's no great threat that we're going to not get any food today. But then remember that at the time of the Buddha, they were wandering mendicants, and so there's no guarantee that anyone would offer anything. There's all kinds of Vinaya rules around cloth, because no doubt at that time cloth was much more difficult to get than it is now. We have lots of cloth, and the time is one of abundance, affluence on the material level. Beyond, it's never been this, the society in any culture, any civilization has never had where the average member of the society had so much, say, in the Western world at this time. So this, this is where the alms mendicant values of our life need to be taken into account, why we reflect on it. To remind ourselves, because it's easy to become precious and a kind of privileged person. People, they put us on pedestals, they, bow to us, and do all kinds of gestures, part of a traditional form. So it can lead to Sakkaya Ditthi. This is my concern. Do we, are we in this for a position, for being respected by others? Some of you complain about feeling that you're at the bottom of the pile. And this baffles me, with this kind of statement. Do I always have to be at the bottom of the pile? And this is not the thought, the perception of a samana. We are at the bottom of the pile, all of us. We deliberately choose to be, the being alms mendicants. It's a personal choice. We aren't forced into this form. You have to ask 3 times to get in, on the traditional side of it. So recognize that this alms mendicant form is, we're deliberately choosing to put ourselves out in that position of dependency, being at the bottom of the pile. And this is, to see how so that we're not demanding, expecting the society to provide for us. And so then this, when the society does provide for us, and they do, then it generates this gatanyu gataveti, this gratitude. Now you can't have gatanyu gataveti if you're always thinking in terms of I don't get what I want, feeling envious of others, expecting, demanding rights, and so forth from the tradition, from the society. It leads to discontentment, dissatisfaction, which is, using this form for Sakya Ditti, to increase the Sakya Ditti level, like being senior monk. Now, in my position, I'm the most senior monk. And so you can look at me in terms of, he's, Emperor Sumedho, if you want, or the Pope, or, I have royal titles, I could start using those. And being, somebody that is so self-important, because I'm at the top of the pile. And then one can envy me, thinking, I want to be like that. I don't want to be at the bottom. Whether at the top or the bottom of the pile, this is the identity of being at the top of the bottom, or seniority, can be Sakya Ditti. This is merely expediency, the seniority structure of Sangha life. It's expedient means. It's not to promote Sakya Ditti, or a sense of I'm senior to you. But it can reflect that, because we do create Sakya Ditti out of the conventions, how we can create Sakya Ditti out of being Theravada Buddhists. I hear Buddhists do that all the time, we're the true, pure form of Buddhism. And Mahayana Buddhism is not the real, it came later. So we're the original, the pure. And then the Mahayana, they can go into, they're the advanced, the great vehicle, and Theravada is the selfish arahant, primitive vehicle. Well, now these can be forms of Sakya Ditti, Who wants to belong to the little vehicle? If we're full of our desires for being the best, let's all become Mahayana Buddhists, so we have the great vehicle. So it's, and this is, to see how the language is like this. It has great and small, and this is better than that. This is the top of the pile. This is the bottom of the pile. If you're at the bottom of the pile, somehow you're a failure. If you're at the top, you're a success. So, I'm a successful bhikkhu. My books, me. The first foreign Western disciple of Ajahn Chah. Waiting lists to go on my retreats. I'm so good because I'm at the top of the pile, and I'm well known, respected, senior in every way, like this. What is that saying? Is that worthy of respect, worthy of alms, or is that just Sakya Ditti? I've used the system, the accolades, the conditions of my life for promoting myself as a person. So it's like being given an opportunity for liberation. I've used it to enslave myself. So in this, the Dasa Dhammas also, these are samana reflections, the 10 Dhammas to be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Because these help us to put into proper context our own tendencies, our conceits, pride, idealism. It's not to make us feel guilty or humiliated, but to help us to remember that we are dependent on the goodness of others, which means that we're not priests, we're not a priesthood, we're not Brahmins, we're not a privileged caste of special priests that should be regarded as better or more holy or more spiritual than the rest. We're putting ourselves down at the level of a beggar. Isn't it? A beggar is someone who's dependent on the generosity of other people. Well, that's at the bottom of the pile in terms of society. And yet here in England we can promote ourselves as a kind of a priesthood of monks and nuns, Ajahns, teachers, meditation teachers, spiritually advanced individuals, and on like this. So that, and the society, if we don't, if we go along with it, we're misusing the tradition. We're given something for liberation, and we're using it for delusion and enslavement. So, like wanting to become Ajahns, teachers, to be a meditation teacher. These are worldly values, so that, try to keep in mind the samana life, the bhikkhu, the siladhar, the anagarika, as something not to use or misuse, but to reflect from. And then the sense of gratitude, gatanyu gataveti, that is a very beautiful, heartfelt emotion. You can't, Sakya Ditti won't make me feel it. I can go through I can say it, I'm terribly grateful for everything. I'm so grateful to Thailand, to Luang Por Chah. It could be just, another form of Sakya Ditti. Isn't Ajahn Sumedho, he's so grateful for everything. It's not that. It's a heartfelt or soul-felt sense of having reflected on the goodness, of the opportunity as a human individual at this time to live this life, to practice, to hear the teaching of the Buddha, to be given the support, the alms, the food, the robes, shelter, medicine, where it's not me promoting myself as someone that's very grateful for everything. Or contentment, what is contentment? And that can sound pretty, in modern values, a contented person sounds pretty stupid. You got to stand up for yourself, for your rights, prove yourself. Don't let them push you around. You got to, this is a time where there's gender equality. It's human rights. It's about standing up, not being content and grateful, but really pointing out what's wrong with the world and the conventions we're in, and really trying to make it right. And this is the ethos of this time. So beware of it. It's not about. This is not Dhamma. It's not about trying to just rectify all the problems and difficulties of a modern society, like President Obama is now stuck with trying to, clean up a terrible mess in the United States. Be glad you don't have to do that. Be President of the United States is top of the pile, isn't it? You're they consider that the most powerful man in the world, and that's in worldly terms, that's the top of the pile. And so he does have to spend, no doubt, spends all his time with meetings and complaints, criticisms, trying to clean up a mess he didn't make, that somebody else made. Well, that's noble of him to take that on. But that's what it means, being at the top of the pile. Now, in the being alms mendicant is being a beggar, dependent on the goodness of others. Because the cynical side of me says, I don't know if I can trust anybody, whether, if I don't have security, I don't have financial security and guarantees and food in the larder and, a guaranteed devoted lay support team that will never let me down. It's like the samana is the aim is to be content, even if we with whatever food is given in the alms bowl, with the robe that's offered, or the medicine made available, shelter for the night. Well, this, we can take a lot for granted, but I'm not encouraging that, or to think that our life should be a continuous effort towards, material security, because then the worldly values have infected us. We're just operating from the same position we would do if we weren't samanas. Except being a samana, you can kind of take it, like I'm a priest, or I'm a kind of spiritually evolved person on a mission, and things like this can be, in any religious forms, can be a form of sakyaditi if we attach to them out of ignorance. The danger with religion always is holier than thou, in that we can feel superior to the lay community because we don't touch money and we're celibate. We don't have sex. And so we are, somehow morally advanced, more pure than they are. Now that's Sakyaditi, isn't it? Is that, using these moral principles out of ignorance and attachment to our own view creates a sense of holier than thou. Because I'm the celibate, and I've given up worldly aims and values. I live the pure life, dedicated towards liberation. It can be, this can be true, but also so it can be Sakyaditi. I'm somehow, a good example to the society. I am somehow superior or better than the average bloke that's just going to the pub at night, watching television, that kind of thing. So that's why it's important to really, really recognize the suffering caused through Sakyaditi. And this first noble truth, Sakyaditi is dukkha, or the ego, the personality, the sense of me and mine. Now, I'm not asking you to believe me. This is not kind of convince you. It's or make you believe what I say. It's more a reflection, an encouragement to take this is one subject of Sakyaditi, this first fetter, and explore it. Listen to it in yourself. So you're familiar with it. You're not trying to suppress ego or get rid of an ego. That's another ego, isn't it? I'm trying to get rid of my ego. It's still the ego, still Sakyaditi. So it's not about getting rid of it, but recognizing what it is. It arises and ceases. Your ego, your Sakyaditi, adapts itself to conditions. And so it's, how we use the forms, the conventions of Theravada Buddhism or the society we're in. The ego will adapt itself to being senior to somebody else, or junior, or an anagarika, or a lay person. The ego will, adapt itself because it changes according to conditions. But that which is aware of the ego is Puto, the knowing. It's a universal intelligence. It's not personal. It has no quality other than knowing. A bit like consciousness at this time. It's a knowing ability, isn't it? Sensitivity, we're in a sense realm, having a human body, eyes to see, ears to hear sounds, a nose to smell odors, tongue to taste flavors, body to feel pleasure, pain, heat and cold. Retentive memory, remembering the past. We have to remember the past so we can remember all kinds of unpleasant memories that can make us depressed as Sakyaditi people. Or we can entertain ourselves, happy, good old days, happy memories. So memory is, to be seen for what it is. It is what it is. And to no longer depend on memory for personal, for identification. So memories arise according to conditions, and then they cease. But that which is aware of the memory, that's Bhutto, that's knowing, being the knowing, the unconditioned, unborn, uncreated, unformed. So, like this, reflecting on the samana life is like the samana sanya chants, and that are reminders, because it's so easy to be influenced by the society we're in. You know, the society wants us to be priests, really, or spiritually evolved people, exemplary members of society that inspire and that they can trust. And so it's easy to put the samanas in a position that's very intimidating. But it's also, you know, a good opportunity, because obviously the goodness that people recognize in our intention, you know, for living this life, it does, you know, for 2,552 years, it's generated the conditions to where this tradition has survived on alms mendicancy. And that's amazing. According to my Sakyaditi level of thinking, it's always impressed me. You know, my cultural attitudes and American values, that something, you know, an institution like this, established, you know, so long ago in a country like India, survived this long, to make it available here and now, here in Amaravati, you know, so that the teaching itself has never been corrupted. The Four Noble Truths, you know, various forms of corruption take place in Buddhism, but, you know, in Buddhist, you know, monasteries or countries or whatever. But the actual teaching is incorruptible. How can you corrupt the Four Noble Truths? Except it tends to be ignored and dismissed. Because it is, you know, even though it's based on the kind of most ordinary human common experience we all have, how many of you really want to look at suffering? How many of you rather be inspired by a charismatic religious icon, or just believe in ideal values of progress, advancement, or just become cynics? Or is it also the samana as it's an archetype, kind of archetypal form? So it's, you know, the alms mendicant, the yogi, the meditator, the one that's left the world to realize truth. But that shouldn't be taken on a Sakyaditi level. And I'm a yogi, and I'm above the materialist values of modern life, and that could be just another form of snobbery. But it's not that we don't have such thoughts, but it's getting to know those kind of thoughts. They are what they are, like feeling I'm somehow purer than somebody else is like this. And so it's not that I've never felt that, or that I have a snobbish thought or supercilious condition has never entered my consciousness, but it's getting to know it. It is what it is. In that it arises, ceases, and that which knows, that's it. That's the escape from suffering. It's Bhutto. And then this you know, this at this time during this retreat, really listen to so you get to know Sakya Ditti for what, not criticize it or believe it or let it intimidate. Get to know it. Don't be frightened of your conceit or arrogant tendencies or your feelings of inferiority or inadequacy or doubts or resentments or pride or conceit. Don't be afraid of it. It's not we're trying to make it all go away by living the holy life. It's getting to know it for what it is. All that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. Whether it's an arrogant thought, I'm better than you are, I'm at the top of the pile, I'm the great teacher, that kind of thing, is like this. It is a condition that arises. It has to have a language for its manifestation. I can't feel superior if I'm a mindful. Or I can't feel like I'm at the bottom of the pile either if I'm mindful. I can be mindful of that feeling that I'm at the bottom of the pile or at the top. But if I actually operate from that position, being at the bottom or at the top, is then it's karma. I'm making karma. I'm promoting myself, this delusion of myself, the reality of myself as a kind of individual entity that resents being at the bottom or longs to be at the top. And this, to listen to it, get to know it, in all its permutations and variations, so you can hear take it to absurdity. To where I'm the most advanced spiritual human being in the whole planet at this time. Where you can take it to its most silly, just for fun, just to see Sakya Ditti. Don't be frightened of it, but it's like understanding. This recognizing it is what it is. Like, how many of you would feel guilty if you started thinking, I'm the most advanced spiritual Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun? In England that wouldn't be very appropriate, because this society understates things. It would be immodest, vulgar, to go around promoting yourself as the most advanced, even if you are. But recognize that take it to an extreme sense of arrogance and the best or the worst. I'm the the most inadequate person. I'm no good at all. I'm hopeless. Whatever. At least that doesn't sound so threatening as the arrogant when I'm the best. But in terms of exploration, don't be afraid of being conceited or being, feeling that you're a hopeless case and can't do anything right. Because it's a matter of listening. Or just the sense of I'm just an ordinary guy, really. I'm no better than anybody else. I don't see myself as superior to anybody. And this kind of thing where I'm just being, modest and politically correct and nice about everything, is like this, still Sakya Ditti. And so this Sakya Ditti it depends on language, on memory, on holding the values of the conditioned phenomena of wanting to be the best, fear of being the worst, of success and failure, praise and blame. And encouraging not to try to suppress it or resist it, but get to know it. It is like this. Having to be somebody is suffering. So the dukkha of being the best or the worst is like this. You know, I put myself out as the best, then I do make my life more difficult, because there's always going to be people saying you're not. So just for safety, you say, well, I'm not the best, I'm just a humble monk, doing my best that I can, trying to put into practice the teachings of the Buddha. I don't see myself as superior or in any way, I just ordinary guy, really. And that's the safe position to take in this society. It sounds nice. And then the other sounds like you're really neurotic, needs to go to the psychotherapy, I'm hopeless, useless human being, I'm no good for anything. Then you need to go to a psychotherapist to get straightened out on that level. That you're really a nice person, adequate enough to cope with life, and convince yourself, that I'm just as good as anybody else. But all this is language, isn't it? It's I am, should or shouldn't. And that's that which is aware of these thoughts, be they arrogant or depressed or humble. It's not not getting rid of the thoughts, but using the thoughts, seeing them in terms of they are conditions. All conditions are impermanent and not self. Feeling that I'm the best, the greatest thing that ever happened to planet Earth is not self. It is what it is. And if I'm ignorant and attached to it, then I reap the karmic results of holding on to that extreme overestimation of my personal worth. And the same applies at the bottom of the pile. I'm the hopeless, nobody loves me, failure of life. I'm just ordinary, well-intentioned bloke, nothing special. Doing my best is safer if you're going to talk in public, but it also is not liberation, isn't it? To be just an ordinary guy. So notice that the samana is not about being ordinary or identifying with the samana life. It's a conventional form and expedient means to be able to see that, and in which the more we reflect on that, then we do feel content with little and gratitude for what is offered. And these are the very foundation of development. Without contentment and gratitude, we can't get anywhere. Spiritually, we're always complaining or envying or wanting, demanding in some way, or feeling we're not good enough, or that after years of dedicated practice we haven't, what we have is not what we expected, so we're failures. Fear of having wasted your life, being a failure. So, this morning's reflection is for encouragement to have the courage to look at suffering, self, sakya ditti, personality view, the ego, in whatever forms it manifests in the present. It is what it is. All conditions are impermanent. You see, if you really look at it, see it as an object, you can't sustain it. You can't hold on to, you have to become, go a bit, you have to be incarcerated in an institution or something. If you take the top, I'm the best in the world, I'm God, is to try to sustain that for any length of time, is you have to go around shouting it, all over the country, and then they'd lock you up. So trying to be God is not, is a form of madness. We can get by just being modest and nice about everything. But also, that's not the liberating way to do it. It's not just being mediocre and modest and nice person, but in understanding suffering, its causes, in which you can observe the absence of suffering.